Hi, Primas. I'm Roxy,
And I'm Giselle.
and this is the For Las Primas podcast. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone.
How's it going?
It's going well over here.
Are you surviving?
Yeah. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Feeling the shift of the seasons. The intuitive side of myself is feeling in a weird way, even though the world is falling apart, like it's going to be my year.
I mean, it's fine. It could be both, I guess.
I know. It's like a crazy thing, but I am feeling the changing of seasons. I am feeling like spring is coming, summer's coming. Summer's always so busy. It's sort of love. As hard as January and February feel sometimes, because it's like the dead of winter, it is nice to sort of be in it before the rush of spring and summer.
Yeah. It like forces you to slow down a bit in the winter,
Totally.
especially over there because you have to just like stay inside sometimes.
You got to just stay inside sometimes. So this might be another reason why I feel like it's my year. I have been doing little despojos here and there. Like I'm in
Okay.
a routine of it. Like
Okay.
every other week I do a little thing. I do a little
That's
moment.
good.
I assess who I need to freeze. I put them in the freezer. What do I need? What kind of a baño do I need? I take advantage
Yeah.
of that. What flowers do I need in my house? What color am I feeling like I need? I've been going with
That's
all of
good.
that.
You're like very aware this year.
Very aware. I got my eyes open this year because we don't got time to have mal de ojo. I'm gonna just say it.
Nobody has time for that.
But I've been living one little despojo at a time because honestly, it just helps me. If I'm feeling like a little bit low, it just picks me right back up. Been journaling a lot.
I love that.
Yeah. Do you journal?
Lately, like my form of journaling is opening my notes app and just writing something down really quick. I haven't had
Okay.
time for an actual like sit down journal session, but yeah, let me just write it, let it out in my phone on my notes app.
Is your notes app like a chaotic place to be?
It's so wait, I think I just saw a TikTok about what your notes app says about you. Like it says a lot about a person. Yeah, mine is so chaotic.
So is
It's
mine.
random.
Random. I had like the other day I went through it. I had like a dollar amount and that was it. No explanation. It was like 1,500 something and it was it. I'm like, I'll never
Yeah.
know what that was for.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Actually, if you have an organized notes app, please stand up because I want to know like are you fixing to kill somebody? Like why is your notes app organized?
Literally. Literally. So I have a little notebook that I take with me everywhere. I haven't been really using my notes app as much, but that little notebook is the new notes app because it's chaotic, like random thoughts. There's this girl that I follow on Instagram where she talks about having an analog bag where you go so that you use your phone less. And so she has like a magazine, she has like a word puzzle, she has knitting, people who knit too. I'm like,
I wish I
I
could.
just it's not ever gonna be me, I think. I would love it to be, but I just don't foresee it as, like, knitting is the hobby, you know?
It's like a little complicated.
Super complicated. I don't even know where to start. Like, one of our friends made Max the cutest little newborn hat. I'm like, "How did you do this? It's so cute." But we're like, "How?"
Yeah.
Um Long story short, she has a little libretica that she takes with her and she writes notes. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have my little libretica. And I've randomly been writing little things, or if I see something out, or if I try something at a restaurant, I kind of write some ingredients that I think is in the dish that I can replicate. I've been loving her.
I love that. I love that.
I've also been journaling a lot about what's been happening in Cuba because it's kind of been insane to watch and see people just burning down communist buildings and protesting and just getting out in the streets. For those people who maybe don't know, Cuba's electrical grid basically completely collapsed. Cuba's been on the brink of collapse forever since I was born. I remember my mom talking about when she used to go to the hospital, you have to bring your own sheets, you have to bring your own stuff, which is crazy to think about as Americans that you would need to bring your own sheets to go give birth to your child. Anyway, I feel like it's been on the brink of collapse for so long, but it's finally like actually collapsed because I think the final straw is the US is not trading with them anymore and Venezuela is not an asset to them. So it's really forced them to show their true colors about where they are as a country, which is not in
Mm,
a good place. I also want to clarify that the blockade is not the reason why this is happening. I think it brought it to the level that it's at, but the government has been blocking its own citizens of resources forever. It's a repressive state. So people who say that are just dumb.
yeah. President's house has electricity.
Oh yeah, they're living fine. The
They're
Castros, they're
living fast.
doing great. And they have like property all over Spain and they have all these assets and they're like living
They're
living
probably not even
large.
there.
They live in large. I have been watching a lot of the content online, and it's filling me with equal amounts of hope and skepticism because I don't know, I'm not convinced that even if
Mhm,
this is the end and it is the downfall, like, is the Communist Party just gonna leave? Are they gonna
mhm.
negotiate with the US? Like, I just don't believe the
Like, what
US
is
is.
gonna happen? Obviously, this is the worst it's been, at least since we've been alive, and in the past, it's gotten pretty close, and then nothing happens, and it's just business as usual afterwards, so that's kind of how I feel we have to see it to believe it, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of, people our age, Cubans our age, Cuban Americans our age kind of feel that way too.
There's people who are more in line politically with us, who are more liberal minded, that are like skeptical because obviously we don't trust the current administration to care about its own people and its government, let alone the people of Cuba. So what's going to happen there? Or there's like the other side of the coin of people our age, primarily Cubans living in Miami, people living in Florida who have never left Florida, who have this Republican mindset and feel like Trump is going to be the savior. And I just feel like it's a tough time to be a Cuban American. I'll say that.
These Cuban people that are like, "I want Trump to come in and help and take Cuba." Like, can we look at Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico is an
Yeah,
example. That's not gonna be the answer. Today he went on press and somebody asked him about Cuba and he's like, "I think I'm gonna go in and take it. It would be an honor to take Cuba, and then I could do whatever I want with it." That's like a
there you go.
crazy thing to say.
No, it truly is. And I think that the Cuban argument, which I see both sides, is like, okay, if Cuba becomes Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico is still in a much better state than Cuba is.
Yeah.
Is it doing well? No, we would argue that colonization has taken full force in the way that the Puerto Rican society is today, and they're not in the best place, but it's better than Cuba. There's still food. So I think that's their argument. But either way, don't we want just like a better future for Cuba?
Mhm.
Because there is such desperate times in Cuba right now, anything would be better than what is current.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's so hard. But I agree. I think that Trump saying, yeah, I wrote that down in my notes today because he said, taking Cuba in some form, I can do anything I want with it because it's governed with violence. And I'm like, we are not in the same situation as Cuba. The United States is not Cuba. I'm not saying that by any means. But our government is also governed with violence. I think there's a lot of similarities in the way that this government is treating its people, and we're nowhere near again where Cuba is, but we can see the beginnings of the same power dynamics that exist with authoritarian governments. So I agree. I think that it's horrible to say like I can take it in any form and I can do whatever I want with it. What is he thinking about? He's a billionaire. I'm going to put
mhm.
hotels and dollar signs. Are the people living in Havana in buildings that are falling apart, is their life gonna get better? I don't know, I'm not convinced.
Unfortunately, the mindset is like, "Oh, well, it's not gonna get better. It's gonna be like this forever," which is sad. Yeah, I have so many feelings, especially since the rise of Bad Bunny and the trend of being Latina and Latin has gotten so big, I feel like Cuba is often forgotten, I feel like, or associated with just, like, negatively.
I'm so proud to be Cuban. I'm so proud of my upbringing. I'm so proud of my parents, their sacrifice. But there is a reality that people don't really want to be associated with Cubans because the Trump administration is so openly anti Latino and the Cubans are so pro Trump that it becomes really hard to like marry those things together. And if you wanna see an example of this government being anti-Latino, I don't know if you saw that press conference where Marco Rubio was in it was Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, and Pete Hegseth, and they were at a conference in Latin America, and Marco Rubio goes to address the press, and he looks at Trump and he goes, "Is it okay with you if I speak Spanish? It's just easier." Trump's like, "Sure, sure." Marco Rubio speaks, then Trump gets on the stage and he goes, "Do we like him better in English or in Spanish? I think we like him better in Spanish." What a slap in the face. He likes you better when he doesn't understand you. People will call that as like a joke. He was just kidding. That's how he is. Forgiving bad behavior. Like, I'm sorry, in any other corporate setting, that would be looked at as completely unprofessional. And then your coworker comes in, Mr. Little Pete Hegseth, and he's like, "I'm only speak American."
Yeah, it was kind of
That is
like,
not a
oh, like, he's bilingual and he's there with them, with the big guys, and he's speaking English, but then they're like, "Oh, well, I actually like you better in Spanish. Like, remember where you came from and, like, remember that you're not one of us."
I'm
That's how
just
I took
so
it.
surprised that people don't take it that way, that people have not
Yeah,
taken it that way. I was so
because
offended. I don't care for Rubio, but I still in that moment, like, felt for him because I was like, "Damn, that is such a slap in the face because you're a Latino, you made it to the highest position of governance in our country, and you're still treated like that in front of
mm,
the press, the Latin American press where you shine because you speak both languages." Like, no, we are not in a country under a government that values bilingualism, that values being from a Latin American country. We're just not. And I just don't know where the Cubans think that they're the exception because the reason that they've been allowed to come to this country is because policies were put in place by democratic governments to allow them to come to this country, and they don't want the same for other Latin people,
mm,
even their own people. And it's
mm.
crazy. It's just crazy. And so I think what also feels really negative about this time, it's like so hard as a Cuban American who identifies as a liberal, but not a socialist and not a communist. Like, where do we fit into the conversation? Just because you're speaking this way, we all understand the policies and like what Cuba has been living. Doesn't mean we have to agree politically in this country, but it feels so divisive. And I understand why, because a lot of Democrats blame the blockade for what's happening, and that's not the reality. I wish some people would just educate themselves that it's a repressive government, period.
Feel like he was forgotten in the shadows. Instead of opening the conversation, people are like, "Oh, well, it's the blockade. That's what it is." And that's the talk about Cuba most of the time.
Yes, that is the talk about Cuba most of the time. It's all centered around America blockade. And it's like, guys, no. Like,
Like,
do
it's
you
so
think
much more. Finding out Cuban history is probably also biased, and anywhere you're trying to find it and read it and learn more about it, so it's hard, it's hard.
yeah, we learned Cuban history through the pain of our families, through like the struggle, through them growing up in a country that censored them continually. I actually have to read this to our primas because I was cracking up at it. So, I think what feels hard about like the liberal versus Republican and like Republican Cubans like owning the conversation around Cuba and there not being any other option or person that could understand. I am a liberal Cuban American that understands the pain of the people and carried that my whole life. This is little Roxy, fifth grade. There's a, this is like, it's like all written in script, but all I want for Christmas is that I want Fidel Castro to let Cubans go free. I would want to meet my family, of which I have never had the chance to meet. If that was my Christmas present, I think that I wouldn't care if I had no toys. I want them to come not only because it would make me happy, but because it would make them see the real world. I think that is the best gift I could ever be given.
That is so sweet.
I know. It's as
Which, by the
Cuban
way, did you
American,
ever get to meet that family? Those family members?
I did. I got to go to
Okay.
Cuba. Yeah, I got to go
Okay.
to Cuba when I was 12, almost 13. I did get to meet them. And going to Cuba was one of the best experiences of my life. Like, I will
Yeah.
never forget it. I can't believe I got to visit where my parents grew up, where my mom grew up. I stayed in the same house that she lived in. We opted not to stay in a hotel. We wanted to be with the people. And honestly, it was eye-opening. It was so sad. One of the girls that lived in the same vecindario where we were staying, we stayed in un solar, and there was, like, different rooms, kind of like apartments, but so small, and she used re cloth diapers,
Mhm.
and my
Yeah.
sister bought her diapers at the store. So, I think for a 5th grader living in the US, writing something like that, we really carried the pain of our family, and we really carried the struggle, and for first gen, everything that we did our whole life was to make our parents proud because we appreciated so much where they came from. So seeing Cuba and the people revolting, knowing what's at stake is really just we're living a really impactful moment in history where this might
Mhm.
be where the
It's
government
gonna be it.
falls.
Yeah. So I was watching a protest where people were like protesting in the streets and they were basically like anti-US. So then I'm like, this is like the other side of what's going on. It's like, you don't know. I don't agree with us being in control and Trump being like, I'm gonna take over Cuba and do whatever I want with it. Like I also don't agree with that. There's like a whole nother side of people that are just protesting. They don't want our interference at all. And then there's the other side that's like, well, we just need help.
Yeah, and it's hard to know truly what people on the island think because
Mhm.
they're forced to
Yeah,
protest. They're forced
exactly.
to speak out until against the US. They're
Yeah.
forced to do these things. My mom always talks about, like, when she was growing up, they had to whisper in the house, like, because
Mm,
you didn't know if your next door neighbor was part of the Communist Party that was gonna tell the government that you are anti the government, and then they put you in prison with no
mhm,
questions asked. And so they lived in this constant fear of, like, what they were gonna say, and my dad tells stories about how when he would go to school, he was so rebellious and he didn't want to like wear the little pañuelo that they made them wear. He's like, fuck that. I don't want to wear the pañuelo. I'm not a communist. I don't want to do this shit. And my grandma was always like, dude, you got to just pretend and play the part because you're going to get in trouble and you don't want that to happen. So I remember them always saying that they had to go to certain events.
have family still over there, and I'm, like, was telling you, um, before that I'm like, can't really ask them because they don't share their feelings, they're afraid to share their feelings. When I had gone over there a couple years ago, it was actually right after Fidel died, like, a year after he died. And the anniversary of his death was coming up, so then people in the streets were, like, selling shirts and stuff with Fidel on it, like, all these things, and then it had prompted me, and I had asked my cousin, "What do you think about this?" And he was like, "With eso no se habla." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, they're scared. Okay,
They're
so
still
after
scared.
all of these protests happened, one, there was a young kid that was shot in the foot by the government, and a bunch of young people protesting that were all incarcerated for protesting. They protested at night. They were able to keep the police and the guards out, and then in the morning, they come out and they, like, the people. There's this woman who was posting, she's like, "Look, I'm trying to get out of my house. I haven't done anything. I haven't protested. I haven't done we don't have light, we don't have electricity, we don't have food. I need to go out to, like, do some errands." And there was people blocking her from leaving. They're like, "No, you can't leave." So now when things get this far, they opprimen más. So they oppress the people more and there's less freedom and there's longer periods without light. I think there went 36 hours without light.
Mhm. That's
All the
crazy.
food in the refrigerator went bad. They
Yeah.
couldn't cook. We couldn't eat. People are like, "What do we have to lose? We have no food. We have no electricity. What are we doing here?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel really bad for them, and I think a lot about my family who died during, um, the revolution. Like, my grandfather's brother was murdered by the government. My mom's dad was perseguido, where he had to, like, hide. Like, I come from a long line of anti-revolutionaries, and I think that that energy lives in me today because I feel so angry about our own government in a way that I think they felt about theirs, where I just feel so protective of my Cuban family that I'm like, "You're gonna be bamboozled twice in your life by government. I just don't want that for you."
Yeah. It's like, damn, you didn't even think that could happen twice in a lifetime.
I know, and I'm just like, what is happening?" And I know that they see Trump as the only president who's, like, tried to do something to help Cuba, but it's also like, there's a lot of similarities with how the Cuban government started oppressing people and how our government is doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Propaganda, news, our news outlets are owned by 6 conglomerates. That's crazy. All of our news comes from single source.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
propaganda, like, everybody talks the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Voting suppressor vo vo Voting suppression is something that's happening across states, and there's a bill right now in Congress where that doesn't have enough votes, thankfully, but there's just a lot of similarities of authoritarianism. Like, ICE is still terrorizing people in our country that are not undocumented illegals. They're not. They're taking American citizens. They're creating all of these jails. Why do we need jails if we're meant to be deporting people? So it's
Yeah.
just like a lot of things that I'm like, glad to get off my chest on the pod because I'm just like, I don't want you guys to be tricked twice by government in your life. You deserve better. I want more for you.
Yeah. I'm glad that Cuba is in the news now and it's getting more spotlight and like things that are happening because shitty things are happening in the Middle East and shitty things are happening in Cuba too. And a lot of times, like, we don't talk about what's happening in Cuba or it's been
Totally.
happening in Cuba.
Totally. No, you're so right. And it is good that it's now in the news in whatever capacity of
Mm.
news because it's so funny. I remember like leaving Florida, visiting rural America. Anytime I've ever told them, first of all, it's like, "Oh my gosh, what are you?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, that is such a strange way to ask somebody where they're from. And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm Cuban." Cuba, I love Cuba. And I'd be like,
Yes. I know, I know. It's always that. It's like I love Cuba, and I also feel a type of way when people say, like, "I love the vintage cars." Like, that rubs me so wrong. Like,
"Esos carros están echando a perder." Like, those things are
I'm like, I'm
cacharros.
so happy that you think that those are cute and that that's a choice, you know?
Totally,
Like, it's
totally.
so
When I visited Cuba, our uncle had a car like that, and it kept overheating. So our legs were, like, burning in this car. I would tell my sister, I was like, "Oh my god, my legs are burning." She's like, "Shut the fuck up. Like, I don't know what to do right now. Like, we're just waiting, but don't be rude and say that your legs are burning." I'm like, "But they're burning. What am I supposed to do?" But it's so true. There's this romanticizing of Cuba that it's like, "No, guys, buildings are falling in Havana. People have no food. People
Yeah,
have no resources." People that go to Cuba and they stay at the hotels and they go to
right.
Varadero. And this girl was filming that she is Cuban. She lives in Spain. She went to Varadero for vacation. And supposedly they stayed at like a nice resort and they still had an apagón.
Those nice resorts also don't have food.
Literally. It's
Like, they'll
so
be like, "It's all inclusive." Una galleta con mantequilla te dan.
I know, they don't even have croquetas. It's, like, crazy. No, but I just, I think that this episode was important for us because, 1, finding our voice within this is important to us, and also the divisiveness has just been weighing so heavy on me where we are liberals and also we also want Cuba to be free.
Yeah.
It's finding a way um to find our voice too within the experience because our family suffered a lot in Cuba and our family came here and sacrificed a lot for us to be here. And the whole premise of our podcast is to honor the first gen experience. And no somos ni de aquí ni de allá. We're somewhere in this middle ground. And we're so proud to be Hispanic and we're so proud to live in the US. And we're also so proud to be Cuban. And having a conversation about it felt really important today for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you wanted to do this episode because, when I was thinking about it and talking about this topic, the hate that I'm thinking we're gonna get from is from other Cubans. Ni de aquí ni de allá. Like falling in that in between is like you're right, like we're not from there. We didn't live it. We don't know what's going on, but we also like carry so much of it.
Yeah, it's our whole personality. We're Cuban. And we have crazy Cuban mothers that we love and couldn't live without, and our abuelas, and our culture is so ingrained in us. And yeah, I think we need to just be open to other perspectives and that people aren't living in the Republican space the way a lot of Cubans in Miami are, which if they have their reasons, fine. But just because we don't identify as being Republicans doesn't mean that we also don't want the same things and also doesn't mean that we're communists or socialists. So like educate yourselves.
And if you're another first generation Cuban American, I hope you can resonate with some of the feelings that we're having.
Yes. Do you think that if Cuba was free, like do you think let's say best case scenario, there's hope for Cuba, there's some sort of a negotiation. I don't think that there's a true negotiation until the Castro family has left Cuba. If the Castro family stays in Cuba and they negotiate, then it's going to be another agreement that's not going to work
Yeah.
because the Castros are at the root of all of this.
Yeah.
Also, they called, I'm going to finish my question, I promise. But do you know Diaz Canel is the dictator of Cuba right now, the head dictator? They call him Diaz Contado. I was like, "That is very clever." But do you think like, what do you see for yourself? What are
Yeah.
your hopes for that to look like for what are your hopes for
I
Cuba?
would hope that, like, as often as we visit or, like, I have visited Puerto Rico or, DR, that I would be now doing that in Cuba. Be like, "Let's go to Cuba." And just, like, the world finding out more about Cuban culture because especially, like, I'm gonna go back to what I said about the rise of Bad Bunny and the rise of being Latina, being popular. Oh, I know this is, like, a hot topic, but salsa, like, now that salsa is, like, up here and people are like, "Oh," like, these, like, very, like, iconic salsa legends, not one person has mentioned Celia Cruz. Hello?
Yeah, I mean, Puerto Ricans did not invent salsa. I'm gonna say it. They invented reggaeton.
I
Reggaeton
didn't
came
wanna do the, I didn't wanna hit start a riot on our podcast.
we are starting to facts. These are facts. This
Yeah.
is not yeah, facts. Cuba salsa came from Cuba. La
So
salsa
now
nació
I'm
en Cuba.
hearing more people when they talk about salsa, they're like, "Oh, yeah, Puerto Rican salsa," and, like, yes, Puerto Rico has salsa, but Cuba is known for salsa, so I'm just like, I can't believe Cuba's not in the conversation right now, like and it's
Yeah.
just we've been so forgotten. Like, and then it's like, you think about and, like, Bacardi was a Bacardi family, they were Cuban, and they were escaping communism, and they went to Puerto Rico and started Bacardi. And so I just feel like people don't know that, and people don't know a lot of things. It's
Yeah,
hard to,
because
like, really get to the root of Cuban culture when they're so suppressed, and a lot of things don't make it out of Cuba.
no, it's so true. And actually there's so many important Cuban figures through history that medicine in Cuba at some point was one of the best in the world.
Yeah,
Um
Jose
literary
Martin.
figures, Jose Marti. The Fidel Castro propaganda for the Communist Party in Cuba started with misinterpreting quotes from Jose Marti. They weaponized him to being something else. What I will say about Jose Marti is that He has an essay called Nuestra America that has stayed with me my entire life. I have a master's degree in comparative literature, and Nuestra America says that the only person that can rule Cuba is somebody from Cuba.
It's nice to dream and, and hope and be positive.
And remember that the power lies with the people. And so, what is going to be best for the people of Cuba should be at the front of anything that is done to free Cuba or free any country.
Right. I know. It's
So,
just like it seems so like duh, but it's not like that for these billionaire people.
for
Everything has to do
profit.
with what am I gonna get in return? And that's just like evil at the forefront.
But I agree with you, and I love your message of Cuba being forgotten and hopefully Cuba coming back. And I feel like Cuba was more relevant too in like the thousands. Remember like Boricua, Morena,
Yeah. Yeah.
Cubana, Dominicana.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like Cuba was like around and you heard
I
about
wonder if
it.
that's Gloria Estefan.
And Gloria,
She was so big back then, so maybe
La
people were just like,
Reina,
"Oh, yeah,
La Reina.
my mother." Almost. She has to make a appearance.
Hi.
What I was gonna say about my husband is that, he's very optimistic and it's just like the kind of person he is at his core. And he's like, yeah, what's happening in Cuba, like it's awful, but the people are revolting and like I think it's gonna happen this time. And so he's just like really optimistic for Cuba.
Let's keep his energy. It's hard because there's been little moments, July of 2021, when, like, those initial protests happened and people are like, "It's gonna happen," and then it didn't
Mm,
happen, and
yeah.
so, um, whatever the outcome is, I hope that there's justice. I hope that the people who have been in power for so long get what they had coming. I hope that the political prisoners are released and can finally be with their families again and
Yeah.
that our families sacrifices. I think that the diaspora, I understand their side. They're desperate. They've
Mhm.
all left their country. Imagine leaving your country right now and your mom and everybody just going with your husband and your baby and you're like, I don't know when I'm going to see you again. Like that's
I
scary.
know.
The story of Cuban people is very sad. And I just hope that they can get justice and I hope that there's a day nearby where something changes for them and that it's in their best interest, honestly. Patria y vida. Well, primas, thank you all for listening with us today. Hopefully, some of this resonates with you, especially our primas who are feeling it, who are feeling the sadness, who are feeling the heaviness of all that's going on in the world, and especially what's going on in Cuba. We really are here as Cuban Americans who carry it in our heart, and we hope for the best for our mother country
Mhm.
and all the people.
Until next time. Bye.